De meeste onderzoekers van het paranormale die ik ken van video-interviews en internetpublicaties hebben als kind een of andere UFO-ervaring gehad. Dat geldt ook voor mij. En ook ik heb me daardoor een leven lang in paranormale zaken verdiept. Het UFO-verschijnsel heeft daarbij altijd mijn volle aandacht gehad. Voor mij is het een vertrouwd gegeven. Maar wat ik nog steeds niet goed kan plaatsen, zijn de getuigenissen van ontvoeringen door buitenaardsen. Althans, de meeste slachtoffers gaan ervan uit dat het buitenaardse betreft, meestal van het type Grey. En dat roept vragen bij me op. Want van een superieure intelligentie verwacht je niet dat die zich zou bezighouden met het type ontvoeringen waarvan op een grootschalige manier gewag wordt gemaakt. Er is dus meer aan de hand. Het fenomeen is veel complexer. In volgende posts zal ik dieper op dat onderwerp ingaan. Ook Rob McGregor blijft zitten met een aantal onbeantwoorde vragen. Het valt hem op dat er een link bestaat tussen Greys en de zielen van overledenen.
Tonight's episode is a departure already, episode 3, and I'm already making a departure, from Experiencer episodes. One of the themes I think we've seen in the last 2 episodes, not so explicitly, but it's there, and I'm sure will be more explicitly in future episodes, is the question of the link between visitor phenomena and the dead. And this is something that Jeff Ritzman and I used to talk about on Paratopia. This is something that Whitley Strieber revealed in Solving the Communion Enigma. And it's something that our guest today addresses explicitly in his latest book, Bump in the Night, Ghosts, Spirits, and Alien Encounters. That's right. I'm talking about the one and only New York Times best-selling author, Rob McGregor. Rob is an Edgar-winning author. He's published 20 novels and 18 nonfiction books. And really, let's just cut to the chase here for nerds like me. He's teamed up with George Lucas, Peter Benchley, and Billy D. Williams. And he's written some Indiana Jones novels. So that endears him to me forever, frankly. But Bump in the Night is not a novel. It is a work of nonfiction. And as you can tell from the subtitle, Rob is not afraid to lump in so-called alien phenomena with ghost phenomena with spirit phenomena because he's found through his research that they do overlap. Now, why that is, how that is, we don't have answers, of course, but we can give voice to the possibilities. And I think for sure we would be remiss to not point out that the point of intersection for all of them is the experiencer, him or herself. And to my mind, because that's the case, there's got to be a biological correlate if this is not merely aliens coming from another planet or interdimensional or cryptoterrestrially or however that works out. If this is not merely ghosts and spirit guardian angels and that sort of thing completely disconnected from the experiencer, then there's got to be something in us that is correlated with this. Not causation, mind you. I'm not saying this is all in your head or anything like that. But, as Rob will point out, there is this element of these phenomena being both out there in the world and somehow inside of us at the same time. It's not one or the other, it's both. And so that should leave us hopeful that if science were to ever take up the call in an honest way, that perhaps they could discover some, as I say, biological component that somehow anchors these seemingly ethereal presences in our reality through individuals. Is that what we're talking about? Is that what's going on? I don't know, but it can't be ignored. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome to the experience Rob McGregor. Rob, thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
So we're talking about your latest book, Bump in the Night, Ghosts, Spirits, and Alien Encounters, and outside of the fact that they all have that fear factor when we think about them and think about things going bump in the night, how do you put these together? Is there a commonality between the three? Do they all belong in the same book?
Well, that's always the question, whether ghosts, spirits, and aliens belong together. Years ago, I was contacted by the director, head of a ghost hunter group in Philadelphia, and we talked about me co-authoring a book with him on ghost hunting, and I suggested that why don't we take a look at aliens as well and see how they fit into the story? And that was a definite no on his part. He said that my colleagues would just find that abhorrent to put in aliens into the realm of ghosts, and the other way around. People who are into the UFO field sometimes think of ghosts as being a separate realm, but actually there seems to be some link between the two to me, and that's why I explore them both, because it seems more and more that people are realizing that the aliens don't necessarily travel here as how we would travel to another planet at this point, through rockets and from traveling across the universe that way. Rather, through interdimensional portals might be the way they move. But they also, it's more than that too, because they seem to have a connection with our brains. They seem to be linked with us in some way that results in synchronicities, paranormal experiences, and it's all very mysterious, and it gets kind of murky, and it's reason why people seem to shy away from some of these stranger experiences.
Well, I wonder, too, because there are circumstances where a haunting is just a haunting. You know, there's a location and there's this sort of strange, people call it maybe a recording of some sort, where they see the same thing over and over again or hear the same thing over and over again. But I don't know that that's true of so-called alien abduction. It feels like, well, from everyone I know and from everything I've experienced, that it's all crossover phenomena. And it's just how the authors or investigators tend to edit for their own sensibilities. They create outlier data and that sort of thing, some of them out of paranormal experiences that go hand in hand with these alien encounters. So is that true that you know of ghost research also? Are there no such things as just haunted houses? Is it always, say, a haunted house or haunted cemetery or something like that in conjunction with UFO phenomena or so-called alien phenomena?
Yeah, I doubt that. Everything is related to aliens. That all UFO or that all haunted houses or all ghost experiences are related to aliens. The ancient alien theory is that it's a case of mistaken identity. There are no spirits. There are no ghosts. It was all aliens. We just misidentified them. And the other extreme is that there's no aliens and they're all demons. So I'm in the middle between that. But as far as ghosts go, as you described it, that's one definition of ghost, that it's like a shell, an energy that just repeats over and over an experience that a person lived, and that the ghost in that sense is not really a conscious being. Then there's another definition of a ghost, which also might be just as true, is a spirit that is caught between our world and the next world and is clinging to this world and sometimes doesn't believe that they're dead. And in fact, if you encounter this type of ghost, they're conscious of you, and in fact, they may think that you're the ghost and they're alive. So, but for me, there is some kind of connection between ghosts and spirits, but it's not something that is definitely always present in my view.
Right, and I know that we've heard a lot about paranormal haunting type phenomena as almost sometimes a peripheral to abductions, almost as if whatever is piercing the veil of reality here is creating this sort of little hole that other things fill, maybe for a period of time, or at least it's tempting to put it that way. But have you ever, in your research, encountered stories where the dead and so-called aliens are hand in hand, so to speak, and it's more involved than just maybe some sort of residual effect of an abduction?
Yeah, well, that's the mysterious thing, is what that means, because a lot of people who had alien encounters have seen, during these encounters or abductions, have seen people they know who are dead, family members, friends, right there with the Greys or whatever aliens they might be. And so the question is, so possibly the aliens see the dead as something different than we do, that they don't seem to be, that they're not dead to them at all, and they can mingle with them. They're moving in that same realm. Or the other possibility is, and both possibilities could be right. The other possibility is that it's actually a shapeshifter, an alien who has shifted shapes to something familiar that you might know, and said, oh, here's my mother who's passed away 10 years ago, and she's back with me, thinking that this is going to make you feel better about the abduction. So that's another possible explanation.
Here's maybe an unfair question, because I don't know that anyone has the answer to this, but the people that you know of, the cases that you know of that have that element to them, are they hypnotically retrieved always, or are some of them consciously recalled?
I think they're both cases. Some people are able to consciously recall their experiences, or at least part of the experiences. There's one case where a woman, she was young at the time, in her 20s, went to a rock concert, and she was abducted after the rock concert. And this was not unusual for her. She had a whole lifetime of abductions. And what happened to her is that in this abduction scenario, there was the lead singer from the rock band that was just playing next with the Greys. And
he sold his soul to the Greys.
And she said, "What's he doing here?" And when they realized that she was upset, they said, telepathically communicating, "We thought you liked him." And when she got upset, he turns into a Grey.
Huh. Well, see, now this gets into an interesting area for me, maybe, potentially, which is sometimes when I hear experiencers talking about these things, they don't tend to parse out what is dream material that they suspect is alien-related, what is an encounter that they consciously recall, what comes out of meditation. Do you do that in your research? Do you parse those things out?
It's difficult because sometimes people have these experiences in a dream state, or in a like in the alpha state, and just in a meditative state, and that to me does not make them any less real. You can have dreams, of course, that I've had dreams of being on an alien ship, and I prefer to think of it as a dream. You know, I don't think of myself as an alien abductee, although I've had a couple of these dreams, that vivid dreams of being on a ship. But to me, the way I look at it, it was a dream, you know. But other people are just as convinced of a dream where they're taken aboard a ship that they were there, that they just went in that state, from the dream state or from the sleep state. And some people, I know of cases where they come back with the clothes on backwards, or their feet are dirty. So it seemed like something did physically happen to them while they seemingly were asleep.
So I know that you're into meditation fairly deeply, yeah, from what I've read of you on the internet.
Yeah.
You must have had visionary experiences in a meditative state.
Yeah, but not necessarily with aliens, though. More of a spirit nature, like a vision quest. One time I was in the Southwest with a shamanic group, and we climbed these rocks late at night, around midnight, and it was cold and dark, and it was dangerous climbing up these rock walls, and everybody was just finding a spot to go into a meditative state. And we'd been doing all these rituals during the day and hiking and everything, so we're in an alternate state of consciousness already. And then going into a meditative state, what I experienced was I saw 3 Native Americans walking on a ledge across the canyon from me. It was very vivid. They're moving along, and the third one turns his head, sees me, and then just shoots across the canyon right at me. And that's when I jerked out of the meditative state and just became fully conscious. And so, yeah, but that was very real to me.
So how would you compare that to, an alien abduction? Of course, you haven't been abducted, so I guess that's pretty tough to do. But when you hear stories of abduction, do you think that this must also require an altered state, even if it's a completely different altered state of consciousness, an altered state nonetheless? Or do you think people really are, if you were in the room, if you were a fly on the wall, would you be seeing this thing too?
Yeah, that's always an interesting question, because if there are hundreds of thousands or even millions of people who have been abducted, why aren't there more witnesses to these experiences? Sure, a lot of them take place in isolated areas, but it's still, they seem to move through some type of realm where they can seemingly avoid detection. Or it's a very interesting question, because it's I'm just thinking of one case where a man that I had interviewed was very conscious at the time, because he was in a car. He was on his way to a Halloween party. He was dressed as a pirate, and his friend was dressed as a clown. And they were on this dark road, and the craft came in front of them. The car stopped, and they couldn't go, and they got out, and they were not alone, though. They were like in a line of several people that apparently had been stopped and waiting to board this craft. And there they are, a clown and a pirate boarding a UFO. That image has stuck with me.
Well, a lot of times with alien abduction material, it can be viewed in metaphorical ways, or, of course, it's more tempting to just be literal about it, because especially if you're the experiencer, it's that visceral and real to you. But when you step back and you look at what actually took place, you can sort of almost see something else going on there a lot of the time. Do you get that with stories of spirit or stories of ghosts, or is it always a literal thing?
Yeah, I think there are different levels of these experiences, of different levels of meaning to them. Oftentimes these alien encounters come along with messages about the future of the planet and the environment, and people come away with a changed view, or become very vocal about these matters, and something that they hadn't been thought that much about previously. So it's a awakening experience. And as far as the mix of the two, sometimes one of my cases that I've been working on recently, the woman who is a retired vet, we call Sandy, it's like the spirit guide is there, like a protective element when the alien beings first came in to her. And I've written about her in Bump in the Night in the last chapter, which is like preview for a future book, and I did that because her experiences are different, because it's not a frightening experience to her. She's had these for 20 years and seemingly benefits from these experiences and finds them enjoyable, although they can be sometimes rough. And they're unusual experiences, and if there weren't other witnesses around that have seen these beings and taken part in some of these experiences, it would be kind of hard to believe. You'd think that it might be just hallucinations or dreams, but they seem to be real.
I'm just thinking here, going back to the fact that these beings come in and sort of pierce reality, and then paranormal phenomena happens. Could it just be as simple as death is another dimension? And if you're talking about beings who are traveling interdimensionally, they would necessarily have bumped into those death dimensions or that death dimension and know about it and work with it? I mean, would it be just that simple, and that we could someday do that too?
Possibly. I mean, it's I think of, we exist in the everyday world of cause and effect, but that there's also an underlying reality that the philosopher Teilhard de Chardin called the noosphere. It's also known as Indra's net, and the physicist David Bohm called it the implicate and the explicate orders, the everyday world, and this underlying reality where paranormal experiences are generated, where and synchronicities are like the connector between the everyday world and this deeper reality. And I think that that the alien beings penetrate this deeper reality, and that's why it seems like they're in our heads, in our brains, our minds.
Do you think that synchronicities are always about one thing, or do you think there are multiple reasons for synchronicities?
Well, yeah, it's all subjective. I mean, if you don't believe in meaningful coincidence, there are no synchronicities. It's just a random event that was unusual. You shrug and walk away from it. And skeptics say, well, it's obvious that at some point these two things would come together without cause and effect, and they just did, and it was meaningless. For other people, the same event might be very meaningful, and it could be even a life-changing event for them. So there's different, orders of the nature of synchronicities that people experience. There can be multiple synchronicities, one on top of another, and that's when it gets really interesting, when it's not just one single event, but several events. And for some people, numbers are very important. They see the same numbers over and over again.
Yeah. In fact, a few years ago, I talked about this on my old show, Paratopia. I had this, I think it was 5:55 at night or something, and I looked at the clock, it was 5:55. And, did the old joke, 5:55, make a wish. And so I made a wish that it would never be 5:56. And from then on, almost every time, not every time, but almost every time, I look at the clock, and it doesn't matter which clock where, they can all be off from each other. It'll be 10:10, 11:11, 12:12, that sort of thing. I mean, to where it can't be coincidence, and it's a cosmic joke at this point.
Yeah.
I wonder what that is. Something like that seems to be a response to just sort of an off-the-cuff remark.
Right.
It seems to go on forever now.
It's like a nudge, from a deeper part of yourself or whatever that is playing out over and over. But it's a conscious thing too. You're consciously aware of these experiences.
Right. So what fascinates you the most about all of this? I mean, if you have to step back and say, because here you are, I mean, you're a successful author in your own right with Indiana Jones books and all that. So why did you decide, okay, I've got to start talking about this stuff, and what is it that keeps you here?
Okay, for me, this has always been an interest since I was a child. It just seemed natural to be interested in these greater mysteries of life, and I've always been baffled when people don't have any interest, or they react in a sense of this being something fearful or demonic. So for me, it's just a natural curiosity. I remember being 8 or 9, standing outside in the dark at the intersection. We lived in a dead end, and I was out in the intersection just standing there by myself, which was unusual because I would come in after dark, or if I was out after dark, I would be out there with other kids in the neighborhood, but I was just by myself. I looked up and I see these lights, blue, green, red, and they're moving very erratically in the sky. And I'm just staring at them. And then I go in and tell my parents what I saw. And then the next day, my father said, "Hey, on the radio, I heard that a lot of people saw those same lights that you saw." So it was, it was a UFO experience that I had, and that I can still see those lights moving around in the sky. That's something that has stuck with me. So, it's just been a long time interest in all of these experiences. And the thing with Indiana Jones, that just kind of fit in there because Indy has an interest in the unusual, the paranormal, and he goes so far with it, and then he wants to back away, though. And I've always had an interest in ancient cultures and archaeology as well. I started out in college to become an archaeologist, actually, and shifted to journalism by my second or third year because I realized there were not too many archaeologists in the world, and there was more job opportunities as a journalist. But I would work after college. I would work for a newspaper or a magazine for a year and a half, saving my money, and then I would take off for either weeks or months sometimes, and I would always end up at the ancient ruins in South America, Central America, Mexico, Greece, Northern Africa. So I had several years of experience and kind of preparing for Indiana Jones, even though I didn't know it.
Well, when you see these guys, there's always, I don't know if it's their publicists or they themselves say that they are the new Indiana Jones,
Yeah, I hear that all the time.
All the time. Do you just laugh at that and you're like, how many Indiana Joneses can there be?
Yeah, right.
One last question here. Just when since you were so involved in South American archaeology and that, when 2012 came around, were you expecting something to happen?
I wasn't expecting anything physically to happen that the world was going to change, and just on that particular day. No, and I wasn't disappointed when nothing, dramatic happened. There were a lot of people that were just acting like this day, this moment, the world is going to change. But we're in a gradual process of a paradigm change that is taking place, and that was a good trigger for a lot of people. But I didn't expect the world to end or to be totally changed after December 21st, 2000.
Oh, well, good.
12, yeah.
Lucky you. No, I didn't either, but it does. You're right. I mean, it does feel as though something is coming to a close and maybe opening up at the same time. And even if that's just simply us coming to terms with the fact that our political systems and our entire way of life isn't working.
Yeah, that's for certain. Yeah, that is for certain. Things seem to be collapsing and changing. Yeah.
So maybe I lied. Maybe I do have one more question. I don't know if you're familiar with trickster theory at all, but part of it is that at times of great change, the paranormal and alien stuff seems to amp up in the world. Does that ring true to you? Have you been seeing that?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's what's happening. There's a lot of in synchronicity. There's a lot of trickster elements involved. With that experience in Colorado in that theater, for example, where the guy came in the front, and just started shooting people. So just before that, that was the new Batman movie that was premiering, and just before that, there was a trailer on a gangster movie where these gangsters come into a theater and open up shooting with machine guns, the people in the theater. And so when moments later an actual person came in and started shooting, people initially thought it was part of the show, that it was something that was just set up as part of their premiere, the event, until people started bleeding and falling and dying, and then they realized they started, running for their lives, So that was definitely a trickster event.
Well, Rob, we are out of time. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting to us. And we'll have Sandy on, who you mentioned is the final chapter in Bump in the Night. On the program.
That should be interesting.
Thank you again, and don't be a stranger. Definitely come back.